about the Nets apparently making room for
Kyrie Irving.
acquiring Kyrie Irving, which
I mean, it should be for any free agent, but the word on the street is Kyrie Irving.
yeah, because Kyrie is supposedly very interested in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a bad idea. I
Yeah.
don't think trading Allen Crabbe to create cap space is a bad idea. I think trading Allen Crabbe to create cap space for Kyrie Irving is a bad
Yeah.
idea. And yeah, no,
So I'm not all the way where you are, where I'm thinking it's a bad idea. It is not my favorite idea for the reasons we discussed. I don't think the gap between Kyrie and D'Angelo Russell on the court matches up with the gap between D'Angelo and Kyrie financially, or the gap between D'Angelo and Kyrie in terms of D'Angelo already works well with this team.
mm-hmm,
Kyrie has proven to not necessarily be an easy fit.
mm-hmm,
And so you're rolling the dice for what really? A
yeah,
few less assists and a couple more points?
yeah.
Like I
and
just
and
don't.
and and and, and, dynamic clutch scoring down the stretch. Of course, you got to give him that. But
Yeah,
I
for
don't.
sure.
I Here's the thing. I just watched Kyrie Irving go to a team that before he got there, they seemed to be a harmonious bunch on the way to significant team success. For whatever reason, whoever you blame, whoever you say didn't do this, didn't do that, Kyrie got there and they regressed. They regressed. It's There are some similarities to where Brooklyn is now, to where Boston. The Boston obviously had way more success. They had gone to the Eastern Conference Finals, but the way they function as a unit and as a team with the we don't have a definitive necessarily go-to guy. Yes, D'Angelo is our guy. He's our number one scorer, but who's hot gets the ball. The flow of the offense dictates where things go. That's where they are, and that's where they are on the incline. To me, I think it shows impatience and a buck and an abandonment to what your probably original team building plan was, to try to now accelerate your rise into contendership by saying, you know what, Kyrie's out there. Let's throw everything out the window. Let's go hard for Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and another guy. I think it kind of there's because I don't think that model is as sustainable as the model that they were building.
Yeah, Kenny Smith had a great quote today. He said, "Good teams know we don't microwave, we bake."
Yes.
And I thought that was an excellent way to look at it
Mm-hmm.
because he said what he sees in Boston, and this has been my contention with Boston all this time, is he sees growing pains. And the thing that I've criticized both Boston and LA for the most is hitting the panic button at the first sign of adversity. All of these, and this is, I think I have some disagreement with you here. All of these problems that Boston so-called had is just a somewhat bad year. It wasn't like they missed the playoffs. It wasn't even like they got knocked out in the first round. It wasn't like they were 15 wins off of what they were last year. And when you come, when you adjust for how much better the Eastern Conference is, with the addition of Bud and several players in Milwaukee, and the addition of Kawhi and Danny Green to Toronto, Boston is a third place or fourth place team anyway, and you adjust also for what Philly did this year. So they were only a little bit disappointing, according to what I thought they were. I thought people were overstating what they did last year and not understating what they did this year, but putting way too much on it. It's okay to have a bad year and correct your issues. Move a few role players that don't work with the chemistry and get some other guys in. I thought that not only did they panic too much, that Brad Stevens did a bad job of coaching personalities, of being a leader of men, but I thought from a media perspective, they let Kyrie Irving take way too much heat. And Kyrie didn't help himself by the things that he said in the media, although other veterans backed him up on the things he was saying, and he did not tell lies about what he was saying. I think what it is Kyrie's personality is he's very direct about some things and he's very ambiguous about other things.
I
And
think I think I think ambiguous is probably too nice of a word. I think he's very direct about some things. I think he's downright passive aggressive about
that's
others.
that's totally fine. And he speaks in code and he gets manipulative and he gets very weird about these things. And so because he does both things, it can be very strange to interpret what he's doing, and people will tend to interpret towards the negative, particularly with how he left Cleveland and the interviews that he did after Cleveland. All that having been said, I thought it was a greatly fixable situation. And if Kyrie got there and this was the problem from day one, I would totally agree with you. But we had nearly an entire season of the Boston Celtics looking better than they'd ever been, with Kyrie Irving logging many minutes as a starter on that team. He got them to the point where they were that year before he got hurt. It wasn't like he only played 5 games, 10 games, 20 games. I don't remember how many games he played that year. I think it was something around 60, though. So
Which you're talking about his first year in Boston.
his first year in Boston.
Mm.
So Kyrie was clearly not the thing that changed. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And the reports have come out that he wasn't the thing that changed. And that team is split between young guys who aren't vibing and old guys who agree with Kyrie. We've seen Marcus Smart and Morris come out and defend Kyrie, right? We've even seen, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens come out and say this isn't all on Kyrie. Even Terry Rozier, who clearly had somewhat of a problem with Kyrie, said this isn't all on Kyrie. Yet throughout the year, they let it be all on Kyrie. So I don't think Kyrie should get that much blame for it, based on the fact that he was already there for a year. By the reports of the players themselves, he did his best to fit in. And that didn't change in the second year. He didn't come back and say, and now I take over the offense. I thought those were grossly inaccurate descriptions of how he was playing on the court. Yes, he's Kyrie Irving. No, he's not Tony Parker, right? He's not a system guy. But that's not his skill set. I don't know why you would want him to be a system guy. The problem that I've maintained was the issue all year was that locker room had chemistry issues. And since everybody on the team is part of that, everybody on the team gets a piece. But Kyrie Irving's the name that you hear over and over again, as if Gordon Hayward and Brad Stevens and Terry Rozier and we got on Jaylen Brown a lot during the show. Like they all weren't significantly adding to it. So this idea that you can't bring Kyrie Irving to a team and work with him, I don't think that's the case. It's the fact that you already have a guy who's working and producing near Kyrie's level and is healthier and is younger and is cheaper. That's why I have a problem with it. Not because I think Kyrie's going to be bad for the Brooklyn Nets. I think at worst they would be a little bit better than they are this year because they're all better and he's good. And if he's healthy, they'll be fine. I just don't think giving up on a young point guard that you grew and nurtured and formed a bond with who's healthier and younger, I just don't think that's a good move. You're just trading him out for a slightly better, more expensive, older, less healthy version. And I don't know about that. When your problem is that you don't have bigs, that's the issue.
Well, what I've heard or what I read today, and take it with a grain of salt, but it did come from Woj, so I put a little bit more you know respect on it. He said that the Brooklyn's plan at this point may be to retain D'Angelo and go for Kyrie and KD. That's why they're clearing cap space because they would like to keep D'Angelo, sign Kyrie and KD. I'm not sure how that works either.
I think
Uh,
it works to a degree because Kyrie has played a lot of two guard,
mhm,
and D'Lo has played a lot of two guard,
yeah,
and I do very much believe in that coach and that front office.
hmm,
So
yep,
if they think that can work, I'm willing to let them roll the dice on it, and I totally agree with that game plan.
yeah. That's interesting. And like you said, Kenny Atkinson is a heck of a coach.
Hmm.
So I do believe in the coach, but we also thought the same thing about Brad Stevens, and we also thought that he would be able to make that work in Boston with Kyrie, and it didn't work out the way we thought. Not even so much from an on the floor standpoint. I think that locker room wise, I think this appears. Now, like, I'm not in the locker room, so I can't say definitively, but it appears as though it's damaged pretty well. And I think Kyrie's personality does have something to do with it. I think the youth of the age of the young core that they have also has something to do with it. I think if there were more veterans on that team playing significant roles, maybe it wouldn't be that way. Uh, Flat simple, without Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, perhaps it wouldn't be that way. Maybe they're the
I
two.
throw Terry Rozier in there as well. I don't think
Yeah,
Terry.
I think they had to do something with Terry Rozier anyway. I think Terry Rozier is too good and too young to accept the role he has to accept with
Well,
Kyrie Irving there.
I don't think that's the issue. And Terry Rose, this is from Terry Rozier's mouth. His issue was when Kyrie was off the floor because he's been playing backup point guard all this time. He didn't have a problem playing a backup role. When Kyrie was off the floor, the offense ran through Gordon Hayward, and he wound up sitting in the corner, and that's where he draws the line. And I get it. I get that a player has a place where they draw the line, and they say, "I'll work with you to a point, but I'm not going to completely do something outside of my value when I can go to a team that will value what I can already do very well, that will earn me more money, more. I
Well,
can earn more money someplace else in a larger role." I think that's totally fair in any workplace. And so for him to perform the way he did in the playoffs the year before and then be, by his perception, sitting in the corner when on the second team rather than feeling like he has a glut of the decision making, that again, that's why I put the Lions share because that's a complicated thing.
mhm.
And I think people really want to simplify it down to Kyrie, and I think Kyrie has too much success in Boston for that to be the logical case. If his sophomore year was his first year, I'd be like, oh yeah, this guy's a disaster. No, Boston had their best stretch with Kyrie Irving in a uniform in terms of regular season. He wasn't there for the playoffs, so he can't really account for that.
Well, I watched an interview with Terry Rozier, and he flat said in this interview, at this point, they got to do something with him or me.
Yeah,
Like he flat said that. So I think at this point, I don't think it's that he hates Kyrie or mad at him or anything like that. I think it's more of he's ready to get a team and that he's the lead guard, which I think is totally understandable. I mean, he's a young guy and he's a young, talented guy who is not doing what everything that he's capable of, right? He's not. So I totally get it. But yeah, I don't know. I perhaps you see an older, more mature Kyrie who doesn't make some of the same mistakes with his mouth and with his body language that he's made in the past. Um, I already see a humbling in him to a degree by just kind of the way he's moving about things at this point. Doesn't mean he thinks he's completely wrong, but it could mean that he's looking at it like, okay, at the end of the day, I want to win, and I'm not sure if I can do that approaching things the way I have been. So I don't know. If they're keeping D'Lo, I'm a little bit more open to it. Because now it feels like more you're adding to what you already had. But to me, to say, all right, we're gonna chase Kyrie and let D'Lo walk. To me, now you're changing the entire identity of the team, and that's not good to me. That's not smart. So